Here at Enchanted Mist Studios, our goal is to provide you, our viewers, with entertaining and riveting content, whether it be comedies, action films, or even documentaries. And for our first official short film, we are taking a deeper look into America's past, a crucial member, W.E.B. Du Bois, and his book, The Souls of Black Folk. W.E.B. Du Bois was born on February 23rd, 1868, and in his younger years, he had a lot of mentors, both of white and African American descent. And when he got a bit older, he attended Great Barrington High School. And in 1884, he graduated at the top of his class and wanted scholarship to Fisk University, which historically was a black school. In 1888, he graduated with an arts degree, in which he entered Harvard University as a junior. Du Bois continued to do many great things till he died at the age of 95 in 1963. Before he died, he wrote a book called The Souls of Black Folk in 1905, and that book is what we will be talking about today. More specifically, the first 3 pages. Now we're at the Ask Me Caring page, and we're going to talk to a few students here that are asking the bigger questions.
I'm going to take you to our head researcher.
All right, let's go. Can't wait to meet him. Are you the head researcher?
Yes, I am.
It's nice to meet you. Logan B. Hill.
Logan Arietta.
All right. So, Mr. Arietta, what are some of the findings that you and your team have found?
Well, this book is a very complex piece of literature, so let me paraphrase it into more literal language to make it more understandable. Throughout this section of Our Spiritual Striving, Du Bois discusses his struggles as an African American at a young age, watching the opportunities that he worked so hard for fade away into the hands of white youths. He introduced the idea of double consciousness as something that wasn't all that new, listing the different ethnicities in which people could only view themselves through the eyes of others. Du Bois concludes that black folk do not wish to be lost in American culture, and neither do they want to mold America in its entirety into their culture, but rather they seek a means to bring out a peaceful brotherhood between blacks and whites.
Thank you.
Now let me explain how the title of this connects on a deeper level to the specific part we are analyzing. The title of this essay is called Our Spiritual Striving, and it fits quite well with the section that we've analyzed, which particularly analyzes the latter portion, discussing the striving for African Americans to be merged into a brotherhood with the white people of America, having been seen as 2 separate spiritual souls. The title of the book itself, The Souls of Black Folk, also reflects in this section, with Du Bois narrating his youth, his effort through his soul, and describing the struggles faced by other black folk and how their souls can merge in a brotherhood with America. Now let me point your attention to Gabriel.
To better help understand this, we need to identify the primary audience Du Bois had in mind for this passage. With tension brewing between blacks and whites in 20th century post-slavery America, American author W.E. Du Bois made a very bold move in publishing his book, The Souls of Black Folks. In his forethought, Du Bois makes it very clear that his book it's meant for all audiences, no matter if you're black or white, any race, any age. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Du Bois didn't have a primary audience in mind for his book. It is my belief that in the opening paragraph to his book, he makes a very, very strong appeal to the black population of America during the 20th century, obviously post-slavery. And he makes this very clear through a couple quotes that he made in the first paragraph, where he states, "How does it feel to be the problem?" Another quote he states is, "It's quite strange being the problem." or something rather to those lines. It's very similar to what he said, but it really encapsulates the mindset and the feeling of African Americans in post-slavery America. Can you cut that?
What do you think the purpose Du Bois had in mind while he was writing this book?
Well, personally, I can't speak upon that matter, but I would like to turn you to our head researcher, Ethan Arietta. I think he would do an amazing job at explaining it.
Okay.
Well, that is a difficult question. Multiple different things could have gone into the purpose of this text, so let me try to explain. Du Bois' purpose for this segment of his essay is to allow his audience to be patient, willing to listen to his discussion regarding the piece that seemed to be just from the grasp of blacks and whites, and observe the goals that he had in mind. Du Bois describes that black folk simply wish to make it possible for a man to be both a Negro and an American, without being cursed and spit upon by his fellows, end quote. Specifically for white audiences, however, Du Bois wants to allow Americans to envision the difficulties that black folk had in America from then until now, and to use that knowledge to gain a sort of guilt or empathy for them. Du Bois describes their, quote, sense of always looking at oneself through the eyes of others, of measuring one's soul by the tape of the world that looks on in amused contempt and pity, and how the youth shrunk into tasteless sycophancy or into silent hatred of the pale world about them and mocking distrust of everything white. If I could focus your attention back to researcher 2 to explain the attitude and tone of this reflection.
Well, of course. After the forethought, Du Bois takes a cautious and very, very hesitant approach to his writing. This makes it very clear that he isn't meaning to offend or accuse anyone.
Ready, go.
His tone feels soft and curious, almost in a sad way. The softness comes from the descriptions of his childhood, and he uses words like gorgeous and merry, and these kinds of words may bring or invoke a feeling of comfort within somebody. It's at this point in the text when Du Bois's attitude kind of switches. Like, it's when he realizes that he's different from the other children in some way. That curiosity that he mentions before really creeps in. And as he recognizes its changes, he states, "Alas, with the years, all this fine contempt begins to fade." It was at this point Du Bois he understood that he wanted to know what was behind the veil. His attitude and his tone switches from gentle and contempt to curious and bold.
If I could just have your attention for a few more moments, I will explain some of the research that me and my team have found ourselves. This will include the structure of the passage and some rhetorical choices that were made within it. First, let's start off with the structure. We decided to do this using methods of development. We found 3 of them: compare and contrast, exemplification, and definition. For compare and contrast, it gives us the speaker's inner anguish and sense of alienation and how they're contrasted with society's norms, underlining the subject of double consciousness and stressing the gap between self-perception and external expectations. For exemplification, it shows that the speaker gives instances of interactions in which people have discussed how it feels to be a problem because of one's race in an oblique manner. These examples serve as tangible illustrations of the larger issue of racial identity and discrimination, illuminating the speaker's experiences and social beliefs. And finally, definition. The piece clarifies the meaning of double consciousness, which is important to the African American experience. Double consciousness is the feeling of being someone that you're supposed to hate. For example, being black while living in America at this time, you're African American, so being American is part of your identity, but yet most of America hates you because of the fact that you're black. And it offers background information for understanding the speaker's viewpoint, identity, and race. And there we go. The passage's overall effectiveness in expressing the speaker's inner turmoil, societal obstacles, and desires for acceptance and equality is enhanced by the use of these methods of development. The audience is emotionally and intellectually engaged by the variety of tactics used, which encourages a discussion about social justice, racism, and identity. Okay. Now I'm going to discuss with you some of the rhetorical choices Du Bois made while writing this passage, using quotes to help you further understand. After the Egyptian and Indian, the Greek and Roman, the Teuton and the Mongolian, the Negro was a sort of seventh son, born with a veil and gifted with second sight. In this American world, a world which yields him no true self-consciousness, but only lets him see himself through the revelation of the other worlds. End quote. This quote and rhetorical choice to include all these other peoples help non-African American readers understand in a way just what it was like to be born in America as an African American at the time. Start quote, "Unresting water, there shall never be rest, till the last moon drops and the last tide fall. And the fire of the end begins to burn in the west, and the heart shall be weary and shoulder the cry like the sea." End quote. This song compares the erratic behavior of water to the inward angst and desire found in human hearts by drawing a comparison between the unceasing flow of water and the ongoing pursuit of understanding and peace. Du Bois skillfully conveys the idea of spiritual conflict and existential longing by using this song. This selection supports the text's main goal, which is to examine the intricacies of human experience and the quest for identity and belonging. Start quote, "One ever feels that his two-ness, an American, a Negro, two souls, two thoughts, two unconciled strivings, two warring ideals in one dark body, whose dog strength alone keeps him from being torn asunder." End quote. This passage's use of parallelism produces a symmetrical and rhythmic pattern that highlights the speaker's dual identity and experience. The speaker emphasizes the psychological turmoil and strain that comes with navigating two identities as an African American in America. By delivering contrasting of components in a parallel manner, this rhetorical device effectively conveys the text's meaning by highlighting the difficulties associated with racial identity, construction, and the need for acceptance and belonging. It also emphasizes the fortitude needed to overcome discrimination and social constraints, as well as to reconcile opposing facets of one's identity. And we are done. Let's cut. And finally, you may be wondering why this matters, or why we decided to talk about Du Bois and his book. Well, this topic and his book is still very much so relevant to our society today. Because while racism has gotten better, it is still very much so an issue, especially when African Americans are still being unjustly persecuted and killed for doing nothing, and Hispanics are being falsely arrested at large and targets for cops, and Asian Americans are being hate crimed everywhere in America. And so that is why this book and W.E.B. Du Bois' ideals still connect to society today.